Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday. We are going to be doing a Tunisian crochet project. And today I'm going to be making a Tunisian dishcloth. I made one last week, and we're doing another one because I am making these for a fundraiser. And it's this week, so I just wanted to make a couple more things for it. So for this project, I'm using my eye hook or 5.5mm hook, and I'm using number 4 worsted weight cotton yarn. As you can see, I've already gotten started. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you footage from last week's because the first 2 rows are the same, but I believe the chain is different. So for this project, you're going to want to chain 44 and then follow the video, and then we will get into the stitch pattern. So what you're going to do for row 1 is we're just going to pull up loops in the second chain from our hook, working in the back bump. I prefer to work in the back bump. And we're just going to pull up chains or stitches all the way across, working in the back bump of our chains. So at the end of row 1, and this is the first part. So with Tunisian crochet, it's always worked in 2 parts. Each row is worked in 2 parts. So you have your forward pass, so this is the forward pass, and then you have your return pass. So right now we're putting the stitches on, and then the second part you're going to take the stitches off. So to work these off, so this is the second part of row 1, this is the return pass. We're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through 1 loop, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 for the rest of the row. And then row 1 will be done. So row 1 is our setup row. So we're going to work Tunisian purl all the way across because the stitch that I'm using for this project is a curler. A lot of Tunisian crochet projects tend to curl, and this one is no exception. And so if you add some purl stitches, that can kind of help with the curl. So when you have your yarn in front, and if you've never done Tunisian crochet, I have a whole playlist that goes over the basics to getting started, so I can certainly link that for you in the description box. And I have a whole bunch of other projects in that playlist as well. So we are just working Tunisian purl. So if you're a knitter, this will be familiar to you, having the yarn in front, then inserting the hook in that stitch, and then yarning over. So what it does is it creates little purls, and these purl stitches really help with the curling. I don't know if it's going to eliminate it completely, but it's a dishcloth, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to block my dishcloth when it's done, and that should really also help with the curling. I mean, you don't necessarily have to block a dishcloth because, you know, it's a dishcloth and you're going to be using it for cleaning, but since I want to sell it, you know, for a charity, I want to make it look as nice as it possibly can. So I think it's going to be a really nice stitch pattern for cleaning because it's got like a lot of texture on it. So for scrubbing and things like that, I think it will be a really nice dishcloth for that. And I do love Tunisian crochet for kitchen type items because you use them a lot and they hold up really, really well. The stitches tend to be very sturdy, and I just find them to be really nice for cleaning stuff. So I'm going to keep going and I will meet you back. Okay, so I'm at the end of my row 2. I have one more stitch to work. So I like to work a Tunisian knit stitch. So if you look at the end here, it looks like a chain. So you're going to insert your hook into the middle of that chain and bring up 2 loops. So that's that knit stitch. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. So then you're going to do the same thing like you did for row 1, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Okay, so we've worked 2 rows. The first row was our setup row for this, and then the second row was Tunisian purl all the way across. So for row 3, we are going to get started with this stitch pattern. And if you're not familiar with the basics of Tunisian crochet, I do have a playlist that goes over the basics, and that also has other patterns there. and stitch tutorials, so I will link that in the description box if you want to check that out. Alright, so let's get started with row 3. So our first 2 stitches will be purl stitches, so yarn in front, and we're working Tunisian purl. And the nice thing with this stitch pattern that we're going to be doing is it lays flat. So the one I did last week had a problem with curling, which often is the case with Tunisian crochet, but if you add some Tunisian purl stitches, that really helps with the curling. Okay, so we have 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to work in the next 2 stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert our hook in those next 2, like we're doing a Tunisian crochet decrease stitch. So we're inserting it in Tunisian simple stitch, and we're going to work a Tunisian simple stitch, those 2 together. Okay, so we took away a stitch, so now we need to put a stitch back on, and what we're going to do is we need to have the yarn in front. And I call this stitch the Tunisian running chain stitch. I'm sure it has a name. I think it just looks like a chain, and so when the stitch is complete, that's why I called it that. But anyway, so we're going to yarn over purlwise, as I call it. So what you want to do is you have your yarn in front, like you were doing a Tunisian purl. Then you're going to wrap it around the hook. So the yarn's in front. We're going to go up and bring it back forward. Because now we're going to work, so now we've put that stitch back on because we worked the Tunisian simple decrease, but we want to put it back on. So it's back on. Now we're going to work 4 Tunisian simple stitches. We're going to work 4 Tunisian purl stitches. So our next stitch, we're working Tunisian purl. And we want to work 3 more. And this will be the start of our repeat for this. Okay, so we've worked our 4 Tunisian purl stitches. So now we're going to work that running chain stitch again. So we're going to insert our hook in Tunisian simple, so right in the next 2 stitches, and just work a Tunisian simple stitch. Now we need to yarn over purlwise, so we have the yarn in front, and we just wrap it around and bring it back. And now we're going to work 4 Tunisian purl stitches, and then work our running chain stitch again. And we're going to do that all the way across. So we have our 4 stitches, and now we work the Tunisian running chain stitch, so Tunisian simple in the next 2, yarn over, and then yarn over purlwise, and we are ready to go. So we worked 4 Tunisian purl stitches and then the Tunisian running chain. So I'm going to do that across, and I will meet you back. Don't think I was clear. So when you got to the end of row 3 here, so we did our running chain stitch here, right here. So then you will do the yarn over purlwise, and you will work 2 purl stitches, and then your last stitch is that knit stitch, which we had done in row 2. So again, for the end of row 3, you do the running chain stitch, you do the yarn over purlwise, you do 2 purl stitches, and then that knit stitch, just like we do 2 purl stitches in the beginning of the row. These are our border stitches, and then you work the rest of the row like we had been doing. So here we are at that running chain. So insert the hook, Tunisian simple, both loops, work your stitch, and then yarn over purlwise. See, now you can see where it looks like a chain. That's why I call it that. It might have an actual name, I don't know. I was playing around one day and I just this stitch sort of just happened. I'm sure I didn't invent it. I never claimed to invent stitches because, you know, crochet has been around for a very long time. So it's not like, you know, that'd be like saying that I invented the wheel, which is, you know, completely not the case. So that's why I say I don't invent stitches, but it was one that I hadn't seen before. But I'm sure somebody at some time in the past has done it before. So I worked my 4 purl stitches and now I am back at that running chain stitch. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to work to row 6. So rows 4 through 6, I'm going to be repeating row 3, and then we'll figure out our next steps with this stitch pattern. So I will meet you back. Okay, so I worked up to row 6, so now we are on row 7. So let's begin row 7. So we're still going to work our 3 purl stitches like we've been doing. Or our 2 purl stitches, I'm sorry, I'm like saying 3. There are 3 stitches because that loop on your hook always counts as a stitch, so that's where that's coming in. But it's not, the first one is not a purl stitch. Okay, so we have our 2 purl stitches, but we have 3 loops on our hook. So now we are going to be working 3 more purl stitches. So here is that stitch there. We're working another purl stitch and then 1 more here. So now we have 6 loops on our hook. So now we're going to work that running chain stitch. So we're working Tunisian simple in the next 2 stitches, working them together. Now we're going to yarn over purlwise, and we're going to purl in the next stitch. And we're going to purl in the next 4. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to repeat this across. So the next 2 stitches we're working Tunisian, the running chain stitch. So Tunisian simple, 2 together, yarn over purlwise. And we're going to purl in the next 4 stitches. So we're going to do this across. Okay, so I'm still on row 7. I've worked my last running chain. I need to yarn over purlwise. And now I need to work 5 Tunisian purl stitches to complete this row. And now I'm at my last stitch. I need to work that Tunisian knit stitch. And then we just work these off like we usually do. Yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to be repeating rows. We're going to be repeating row 7 for rows 8 through 10. So we're just going to repeat what we just did up to row 10, and then I will meet you back at the end of row 10. So just keep repeating row 7. So the next row is row 8. So rows 8 through 10, repeat row 7. Okay, so I finished up row 10, so you're starting to see the pattern come out. So what we're going to do is we're going to repeat rows 3 through 10, and I'm not sure for how many rows, but we will want to end on this section here, which are rows 3 through 6. So I will let you know how many rows. I'll put it up on the screen, but again, we're repeating rows 3 through 10, and I will meet you back when this guy is a lot bigger. So here is my completed dishcloth. So what I ended up doing was I worked 30 rows, repeating rows 3 through 10. And I ended row 30, I ended on a row 6, so that was that 3 through 6. And then row 31, I worked a purl row, Tunisian purl, and then I bound off. So what I'm going to do is I am going to show you how to do the purl row because I made a dishcloth last week, so that is the same. So I'm just going to use that footage, and then I will show you the bind off row. So what we're going to do is we are going to repeat row 2. We're going to work Tunisian purl all the way across. So this is row 25 for me. So I have my yarn over in front and working Tunisian purl, and I'm just going to be Tunisian purling all the way across. And again, these purl stitches, there are border stitches and also hopefully help with our curling situation, because it is such a beautiful stitch pattern, but she's a curler. So let's finish this guy off. So we're going to do a bind off row. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work in Tunisian simple, and then it's like you're working a slip stitch in regular crochet. So I've got my hook in that stitch, my yarn over, and we're just going to pull through those two stitches to bind off. And you do that across, and we're working in Tunisian simple, and then in my last stitch I'm going to bind off in the Tunisian knit stitch. And when you're binding off, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of a relaxed hand, because you can get a little tight, so that can affect your tension a little bit. So you obviously don't want the stitches to be too loose, but you just want to have that happy medium with your tension there. Okay, so I'm almost at the end here. So our last stitch, we're just working that knit stitch, inserting the hook like a knit stitch, and then we're going to bind that guy off. And then what you can do is cut your yarn, because my dishcloth is done. So there was the purl row and the bind off row, and here it is. You can see it again here. And I really am super happy with how this turned out. And as you can see, I didn't block this yet. It lays very flat. This stitch pattern is really nice for that. If you want to use a Tunisian stitch pattern that does not curl, this is definitely your go-to. The running chain and then having the purls next to it really help it to lay flat. But I think it's a really pretty stitch pattern. I was thinking I might want to use this for something else. I have made this with the running chain where it was long, but I actually really like it broken up like this. It really gives it a neat effect. As someone who saw it, they're like, oh, it looks like a basket weave, and it kind of does. But I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.